My own family didn't recognize my success until the moment I decided to vanish from their lives. My name is Jordan, and by 30, I had quietly built a financial technology company processing over 8 figures annually. My partner Alex stood by me completely, but his father, Robert, viewed my entire career as some kind of temporary distraction. Despite the stability I created, I'd still catch him making comments about real professions at holiday dinners. I tried for years to earn his respect, but nothing ever measured up. Then, at a family dinner celebrating his retirement, he crossed a line I never thought he would. I never imagined he'd say those words directly to my face, in front of everyone who mattered to him. Before I continue, let me know where you're tuning in from. Today, drop your city in the comments and hit subscribe if you're new here. I grew up in a small town in Michigan, where both my parents worked multiple jobs just to cover our basic needs. My dad logged decades at the local plant, coming home each night with his hands raw and his spirit drained. My mom managed 2 different retail stores, often working through weekends and holidays. They were the most resilient people I've ever known, but no matter how many hours they sacrificed, we were always just one unexpected bill away from financial trouble. School wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't about intelligence. I just couldn't thrive in that rigid structure. My brain worked in a different way. While instructors lectured about formulas and historical events, I was drafting ideas for apps or thinking about how to streamline local business operations. By my final year, my advisor had stopped mentioning college applications. Given my academic record and our financial reality, higher education wasn't a feasible path forward. After graduation, I entered the workforce immediately. I took any job I could find: retail, customer service, data entry. Nothing felt like the right fit until I started working at a co-working space near the university's engineering department. The pay was average, but the networking opportunities were priceless. That's where I first met Alex. He was finishing his engineering degree, working on a project with his classmates. Unlike his peers who barely noticed the support staff, Alex always made eye contact and asked for my opinion. I still remember how he defended me when his friend complained about a minor scheduling mix-up. "She's managing this entire floor by herself," he said. "Give her a break." After that, he started coming by more frequently, always stopping to chat. Our brief exchanges gradually became longer conversations. Eventually, he asked for my number, and I surprised myself by giving it to him. Our first date was simple. Just coffee at a local spot, but we talked for what felt like hours. Alex came from an affluent East Coast family with generations of lawyers and engineers. His father was a prominent attorney, his mother a tenured literature professor. By every logical measure, we shouldn't have connected, but we did. When Alex introduced me to his parents a few months later, I knew instantly that Robert was not impressed. He maintained a polite demeanor, but his eyes judged everything from my affordable clothing to my limited knowledge of fine wine. His mother, Clara, was warmer, showing real interest in my goals. But Robert kept steering the discussion back to Alex's career and their family friends. Accomplished children. "Jordan is exploring starting her own venture," Alex mentioned over dinner. "How intriguing," Robert replied with a thin smile. "What kind of venture can one launch without a formal education these days?" Despite his family's reservations, Alex proposed a year later. I was 24. He was 26. The wedding was intimate, my preference, not theirs. I overheard Robert telling a cousin it was probably for the best given the diverse backgrounds of our guests. While Alex completed his degree, I began building my business from our small apartment. With just a laptop and relentless drive, I offered digital payment solutions to local businesses. My rates were low initially, almost embarrassingly so, but I needed to build a portfolio. I spent nights learning everything about financial technology through online courses and industry forums. The first several months were disheartening. Potential clients questioned my credentials. Without a prestigious degree or corporate background, why should they trust me? I lost count of how many times I heard, "We'll consider it," or "We're going with a more established provider." Through it all, Alex never wavered. He'd come home exhausted from his studies and still make time to listen to my ideas, or help me refine my pitches. When I secured my first real client, a local bookstore, he brought home dessert to celebrate. "They're fortunate to have you," he said, raising his glass to mine. "This is just the beginning." Robert had different opinions. During their weekly calls, he'd ask Alex when I planned to get a proper job or continue my education. He mailed us brochures for community college programs. When we visited for holidays, he'd introduce me to their friends as Alex's wife rather than using my name, carefully avoiding any mention of my growing enterprise. The real turning point came at our wedding reception. I overheard Robert speaking with his brother in what he thought was a private moment. He could have chosen anyone. "Promising engineers, professors' daughters, people from our world," he sighed. "I just hope he doesn't come to regret settling so soon." Those words carved themselves into my heart. No matter what I achieved, in his eyes, I would always be the unqualified girl who somehow captivated his accomplished son. But I'll keep that in mind. He placed a community college brochure beside my laptop. "Education is never wasted, dear." What Robert didn't know, what I hadn't told even Alex yet, was that my little side project had just secured a contract worth over 7 figures. A regional retail chain had hired us to overhaul their entire payment system, the largest project we'd ever managed. When I finally shared the news with Alex that evening, he was thrilled, insisting we go out to celebrate. I hesitantly suggested including Robert. "He should see how well you're doing," he said. "Maybe he'll finally stop with the education comments." At dinner, I nervously told Robert about the contract. His response was immediate. "How wonderful that these computer projects are working out for you," he said, cutting his steak precisely. "Though I imagine it's quite volatile. Good thing Alex has a stable career to fall back on." I saw Alex's jaw tighten, but he said nothing. Later, he apologized for his father, explaining, "Robert came from a different era that valued traditional education above all else." I understood, but the dismissal still stung as my business continued growing. We bought our Denver home, a beautiful modern property with mountain views. During his first visit, Robert walked through each room with a critical eye. "It's very contemporary," he said, which I quickly learned was his code for disapproval. "All this open space and glass, not very practical for when you start a family." Children were a sensitive topic. Alex and I wanted them eventually, but we'd agreed to wait until his career stabilized. Robert brought it up constantly, implying my career was the obstacle. "A woman's most important role is motherhood," he'd say during family calls. "Everything else is secondary." Despite these tensions, I continued trying to win his approval. I sent thoughtful gifts on his birthday and holidays. When he mentioned wanting to visit Asia, I surprised him and Alex's mother with business class tickets and luxury hotel reservations. I included Robert in holiday planning and asked for his family recipes. Nothing changed his perception of me. As my annual revenue approached $5 million, I maintained privacy about my financial success. Only Alex knew the full extent of our wealth, which now significantly outpaced his engineering salary. We made a conscious decision not to flaunt it, especially around family. "It wouldn't change anything," Alex said when I considered being more transparent with his parents. "Dad would just say you got lucky or that money doesn't equal accomplishment." He was right, of course. During a family gathering, I overheard Robert telling relatives that I played on the computer all day while Alex built real things. When someone asked directly about my work, he interrupted before I could answer. "Jordan assists small businesses with their online payments," he said dismissively. "It keeps her occupied while Alex builds his career." These moments hurt, but I focused on my growing company and my relationship with Alex. We were partners in the truest sense, supporting each other's dreams without competition or resentment. When I suggested buying a vacation property in Portland, a city we both loved, he enthusiastically agreed. "Having a place that's just ours might be nice," he said. I didn't mention that I was also thinking of it as a potential retreat from family tension. Everything changed when Alex's mother died unexpectedly from a sudden illness. Clara had always been the buffer between Robert's criticism and me, often redirecting conversations to neutral territory when tensions rose. Without her, there was nothing to temper Robert's disapproval. 2 months after the funeral, Robert announced he was selling the family home and moving to Denver to be closer to us, his only remaining family. Alex was delighted. I was terrified. "It'll be different once he's here regularly," Alex assured me. "He'll see how hard you work, how successful you are." I wanted to believe him for his sake. I tried to be enthusiastic about helping Robert find a condo just 10 minutes from our home. I even took time away from work to help him move in and decorate, hoping to build a better relationship through shared activities. For the first few weeks, things seemed promising. Robert joined us for Sunday dinners and was genuinely warmer than I'd ever seen him. But as he settled into Denver life, old patterns re-emerged, intensified by his increased presence in our daily lives. He began dropping by our house unannounced, often when Alex was at work. He'd ring the doorbell during my video conferences with clients or team meetings, insisting it was just a quick visit. No matter how many times I explained my work schedule, he didn't seem to grasp that working from home meant actually working. "I don't understand why you can't take a break," he'd say, wandering into my office space with tea. "It's not like you have a real office to go to." I tried establishing boundaries, setting office hours, and asking him to call before visiting, but he viewed these requests as personal rejections. He'd tell Alex I was keeping him at a distance during a difficult time in his life. The situation became increasingly uncomfortable as my business continued growing. We hit $6 million in annual revenue that year, expanding into international markets and launching a second software product. I now had team members across 3 continents and was considering opening a small headquarters in downtown Denver. During this intensive growth period, Robert's interruptions became more disruptive. He'd arrive with grocery bags, insisting on reorganizing my pantry while I was on important calls. He'd vacuum near my office during presentations. Once he walked into frame during a video meeting with our most important client to ask if I wanted chicken or beef for dinner. "Your father-in-law seems very involved," the client commented afterward. What made it worse was Robert's continuing dismissal of my career in conversations with others. At a neighborhood block party, I overheard him telling our neighbors that he worried about me being home alone all day with nothing but that computer. When family visited from the East Coast, he introduced me with, "This is Jordan, Alex's wife. She does internet things while he's at the office." The subtle digs accumulated, creating a constant undercurrent of tension. Alex noticed, but found himself caught in an impossible position, wanting to defend me without hurting his widowed father. He'd gently correct his misconceptions about my work, but never directly confronted his behavior. "He's still grieving, Jordan," he'd explain after particularly difficult interactions. "And he grew up believing a person's value came from their education and social standing. He doesn't understand what you do." I understood grief. I'd lost my own mother years earlier, but grief didn't justify constantly undermining someone's life work. As my business approached the $8 million revenue mark, I made a significant decision. I purchased a luxury condominium in downtown Portland as our vacation home. The 2-bedroom penthouse had stunning river views and a dedicated office space where I could work during visits. I didn't explicitly tell Alex it was also my backup plan for sanity, but I think he suspected. "This place is just for us," I said as we toured it together during a rare weekend away. "No extended family, no work calls, no interruptions." He squeezed my hand. "I love that idea." We didn't tell Robert about the Portland property. There was no reason to. We had no plans to sell our Denver home or relocate, but having that space, knowing it existed, gave me a sense of peace I hadn't felt since he moved to Denver. The confrontation that changed everything began brewing when Robert suggested hosting a family dinner for Alex's cousins, who were visiting from Boston. Both were Ivy League graduates, one a corporate attorney, the other a research scientist, with equally accomplished spouses. In Robert's eyes, they represented everything a family should be. "Let's have them over to our house," I offered, wanting to be accommodating. "I'll handle everything." Robert seemed pleased with my enthusiasm, but added, "I'll help, of course. These are distinguished people, and everything should be perfect." I spent days planning the menu, cleaning the house, and arranging my work schedule to ensure I could be fully present. The morning of the dinner, I wrapped up critical meetings by noon, then started preparing the elaborate meal I'd planned. Robert arrived 3 hours early, immediately critiquing my preparations. "Oh, you're using these dishes. I thought we'd use the formal china." He rearranged my carefully set table. "And these placemats are too casual for William and Rebecca. They're accustomed to proper dining." I bit my tongue and adjusted. Our client's financial data and operations were at risk. I quickly typed a response authorizing the necessary actions and emergency team deployment. The entire exchange took less than 2 minutes. When I returned, Robert was staring at me with barely concealed contempt. "In my day," he announced to the table, "young women didn't prioritize phones over guests. But I suppose that's what happens without proper educational background to teach social graces." The cousins looked uncomfortable. I started to apologize for the brief interruption when Robert continued. "Jordan has always been more interested in playing on her computer than building real skills. Alex does his best to support her little hobby. But really, what kind of example does that set? An uneducated person pretending to run a business from our guest bedroom." My cheeks burned. The guest bedroom he referred to was my fully equipped home office that had generated millions in revenue. "Robert," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "My work isn't a hobby. It's a legitimate business that what?" He interrupted, voice rising. "That keeps you busy while Alex actually contributes to society. He builds real infrastructure while you push buttons online. You have no education, no real skills, and frankly no business pretending to be part of this family." The dining room fell silent. Even Robert seemed momentarily shocked by his outburst. But instead of backing down, he doubled down. "You're unqualified and directionless. Get out," he snapped, pointing toward the door as if I were a trespasser in my own home. For a moment, no one moved. The cousins stared at their plates. I felt a strange calm wash over me, the kind that comes when a long-feared confrontation finally arrives. I smiled, placed my napkin gently on the table, and simply said, "Okay." The sound of my chair sliding back from the table seemed unnaturally loud in the stunned silence. I stood up slowly, maintaining eye contact with Robert, whose face flickered between triumph and uncertainty. He clearly hadn't expected me to actually leave. "Jordan," he didn't mean. William's wife started, but I raised my hand gently to stop her. "It's all right," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I think Robert expressed himself quite clearly. Robert's chin lifted defiantly. "I only said what everyone's been thinking. Alex deserves someone who can truly be his partner, intellectually and socially." I nodded as if considering his perspective. "You've made your feelings known for years, Robert. I appreciate the clarity." Without another word, I walked upstairs to our bedroom, closed the door, and leaned against it. My heart was pounding, but my mind was remarkably clear. For years, I tried to win this man's approval, contorting myself to fit his expectations while downplaying my achievements. In that moment, I realized how much energy I'd wasted seeking validation from someone determined not to give it. I pulled out my suitcase and methodically packed essentials, clothes for a week, toiletries, my laptop, and equipment. From downstairs, I could hear uncomfortable conversation resuming with Robert apparently continuing his criticism. Now emboldened by my absence, I've tried to be supportive, but really, what can one expect? His voice carried up the stairs. "No education, no family background. He married her before he knew better." I texted Alex. "Robert asked me to leave during dinner. Taking some space, going to Portland. I'm okay. We'll call when I land. Love you." His response was immediate. "What? I'm coming home right now." I replied, "No need. Your project needs you. I need space. We'll explain later. I promise I'm fine." After zipping my suitcase, I took a moment to look around our bedroom. The photos of our travels, books we'd shared, the life we'd built together. None of that was changing. I was just giving myself permission to step away from toxicity. I carried my suitcase downstairs where conversation abruptly halted. Robert sat at the head of the table where Alex usually sat, looking for all the world like he belonged there more than I did. "You're actually leaving?" he asked, seeming genuinely surprised. "Yes," I replied simply. "You asked me to get out." I am respecting your request. William stood awkwardly. Perhaps we should go. Please finish your dinner, I said with genuine warmth. This is between Robert and me. The food is already prepared. It would be a shame to waste it. I walked to the closet, retrieved my coat and purse, and called a car service. As I waited by the door, Robert approached, his expression a mix of irritation and confusion. This is completely unnecessary drama, he said quietly. You're embarrassing yourself and this family. I looked at him calmly. Robert, I've spent years trying to earn your respect. I've been patient, understanding, and accommodating. But I won't stay where I'm not wanted, especially in my own home. Well, where will you go? He demanded as if catching me in a bluff. I have options, I said simply. His eyes narrowed. You'll go running to your parents, I suppose. Hiding in that little town until Alex forgives you for walking out. I didn't bother correcting his assumption that I had nowhere else to go. My phone buzzed with notification that my car had arrived. Please lock up when everyone leaves, I said, picking up my suitcase. Good night. As I walked out the door, I heard Rebecca whisper, should someone go after her? Robert's response followed me into the night. She'd be back when she runs out of money. Where else would she go? The cold Denver air felt cleansing as I loaded my suitcase into the waiting car and directed the driver to the airport. I purchased a first-class ticket to Portland on the next available flight scheduled to depart in just under 2 hours. While waiting at my gate, I called Alex. He answered immediately, his voice tense with concern. What happened? Are you really going to Portland? I'm about to board. Alex, I need some space right now. Your father told me to get out of our house in front of your cousins after calling me unqualified and directionless. His sharp intake of breath was audible. He did what? Jordan, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I assured him. But I need to remove myself from the situation. I'm going to our Portland place for a while. I'll come with you, he said immediately. No, you won't. You have projects that need you in a schedule you can't just abandon. I'll be fine. I can work from anywhere. That's the beauty of my little hobby. Remember? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. I softened my tone. I love you, Alex. This isn't about us. But I need to figure out how to move forward with your father. And I can't do that with him in our house every day. He was quiet for a moment. How long will you be gone? I don't know, I answered honestly. I need time. I'll talk to him. Make him apologize. That's not what I want, I said firmly. I don't want a forced apology. I want genuine respect or at least civil treatment. If he can't give that, then we need stronger boundaries. We talked until my boarding call with Alex, alternating between apologies and assurances that we would figure this out. Neither of us mentioned what we both knew, that this confrontation had been building for years, and there was no easy resolution. On the plane, I reclined in my seat and closed my eyes, exhaustion finally catching up with me. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about how to please Robert or minimize his criticism. I was thinking about myself, my business, and what I actually wanted from life. It felt surprisingly like freedom. Landing in Portland at 1 a.m., I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The city lights glittered as my taxi drove toward our riverfront building, a property Robert didn't even know existed. The door person recognized me immediately, welcoming me despite the late hour. Inside our condominium, I dropped my suitcase and stood in the darkness, taking in the city view through floor-to-ceiling windows. This space was mine, ours unsullied by judgment or criticism. I hadn't realized how much tension I'd been carrying until I felt it dissolve from my shoulders. After a few hours of restless sleep, I woke with the dawn and immediately set up my workstation in the dedicated office. My team was accustomed to my remote work. No one would question my Portland location. By 7 a.m., I was responding to emails, reviewing the server crisis resolution, and joining my regular morning video call with directors. Everything all right? You're not usually at that background, my operations director noted. Just working from our Portland place for a while, I replied casually. How's the server situation? We dove into business matters. And for those hours, I was simply Jordan the CEO, not Jordan the inadequate daughter-in-law. The work that Robert dismissed as a hobby required my full intelligence and attention. I guided my team through complex decisions, reviewed performance metrics, and approved strategy adjustments for our largest accounts. Mid-morning, Alex called. He sounded exhausted. "I just got home," he said. "Dad's still here." I tensed. "He spent the night at our house. After you left, the cousins made excuses to leave pretty quickly. Dad stayed to help clean up, then said it was too late to drive home." His voice was tight with controlled anger. "I got home an hour ago and he was making coffee in our kitchen like nothing happened." "What did you say to him?" I asked. "I asked him why my wife was in Portland instead of in our home." He paused. He tried to downplay it, said you were being overly sensitive and creating drama. When I pressed him, he claimed he was just concerned about your lack of direction in life. I almost laughed at the absurdity. My lack of direction. I know. I told him exactly what you make annually and how many people you employ. His voice softened. I wish you could have seen his face, Jordan. He had no idea. It wouldn't have mattered, I said. He'd just say I got lucky or that money doesn't equal accomplishment. Your father has decided who I am, and no evidence will change that. We talked for nearly an hour. Alex was torn between loyalty to me and concern for his widowed father. I understood his position and didn't ask him to choose. Instead, I emphasized that I needed space to determine my own boundaries going forward. "I'm not leaving you," I assured him. "I'm just removing myself from a toxic situation while we figure this out." "I miss you already," he said before hanging up. "The house feels wrong without you." My first day in Portland established a pattern that would continue for weeks. I worked normal business hours, took walks along the riverfront, ordered delivery from restaurants we discovered during previous visits, and video called with Alex every evening. I also used the time to reflect on what I wanted from my relationship with Robert moving forward. Professionally, my temporary relocation coincided with unprecedented growth, without daily interruptions and family tension. I focused completely on scaling operations. We landed 3 major new clients, bringing our projected annual revenue to $10 million. I hired 5 new team members and began serious planning for a formal headquarters in Denver. Robert, meanwhile, had apparently expected me to come crawling back after a day or two. According to Alex, he'd been shocked when I didn't return, and even more shocked when he confirmed I was running my business successfully from Portland. "He keeps asking when you're coming home, like he's waiting for you to apologize," he reported during our calls. "I've told him repeatedly that he's the one who needs to make amends." And, I prompted, "He says he has nothing to apologize for, that he was just being honest about his concerns." This didn't surprise me. Throughout our calls, Alex grew increasingly frustrated with his father's refusal to acknowledge the harm he'd caused. One evening, 3 weeks into my Portland stay, he reached his breaking point. "I told him today that he's not welcome in our house until he genuinely apologizes to you," he said, his voice resolute. He started crying, saying I was choosing you over my own father. "Alex, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," he interrupted. "He crossed a line, Jordan. He disrespected my wife in our home in front of family. I won't tolerate it." His support meant everything. But I worried about the strain this was putting on him. He was working demanding project schedules while navigating family drama without me there as a buffer. He sounded tired in every call. "Why don't you come to Portland this weekend?" I suggested. "You have 3 days off, right? We could use some time together." The excitement in his voice was immediate. "I'll book a flight tonight." Having Alex in Portland transformed the condominium from a refuge to a home. We spent a glorious weekend exploring the city, enjoying restaurants, and reconnecting without Robert's shadow between us. On Sunday morning over coffee on our balcony, we had our first real conversation about the future. "I can't go back to how things were," I admitted. "I can't have him dropping by unannounced, interrupting my work, criticizing my choices." Alex nodded. "I know. I've been thinking about this a lot. What if we set up your official headquarters sooner than planned? You'd have a separate workspace away from the house. That might help." I agreed. "But it doesn't address the fundamental issue. Your father doesn't respect me or what I do. That won't change just because I work elsewhere." Then we establish clear boundaries, he said firmly. He calls before visiting. He respects your work hours. No more comments about your education or career. And if he can't abide by those rules, he doesn't come over. I squeezed his hand, grateful for his understanding, but realistic about the challenges ahead. He'll test those boundaries at every opportunity. Then I'll reinforce them, he promised. You're my wife, Jordan, my partner. Anyone who can't respect you can't be part of our daily lives, even my father. When Alex returned to Denver, Robert was waiting for him, literally sitting in our driveway when he arrived from the airport. According to his call that night, he'd brought breakfast and expected to discuss when I would stop this foolishness and come home. Instead, Alex had laid out our new boundaries clearly and without compromise. Robert had responded with tears, accusations of betrayal, and finally cold anger. Fine, he'd said, according to Alex. If that's how she wants things, so be it. But don't expect me to pretend we're one big happy family. That's exactly what I've been asking you to stop pretending, Alex had replied. A month into my Portland stay, I received an unexpected email from a business publication requesting an interview for their Self-Made Entrepreneurs in Tech series. They'd heard about our company's innovative approach and rapid growth. After consulting with our PR team, I agreed. The resulting article published, -1 weeks after I left Denver, featured a professional photograph of me in our Portland office and a detailed profile of my journey from high school graduate to multimillionaire CEO. The piece highlighted our company's revenue, employee count, and industry impact with particular emphasis on my non-traditional path to success. Jordan has built an 8-figure financial technology empire without a college degree, the headline proclaimed. Her secret: identifying opportunities that traditionally educated executives missed. I hadn't thought about Robert seeing the article, but Alex called the morning it was published slightly breathless. You're not going to believe this, he said. Dad just called me. He saw your business publication profile. My stomach tightened. And he's in shock. Complete shock. He kept saying, 8 figures. That can't be right. When I confirmed it was accurate, he got very quiet. I waited for the criticism that I was exaggerating, that the journalist had misunderstood, that money wasn't everything. Instead, Alex continued with a note of satisfaction in his voice. He asked if you'd really built all that without a degree. When I said yes, he didn't know what to say. I think this is the first time he's had to confront his misconceptions about you head-on. Later that day, my phone displayed an incoming call from Robert's number. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Jordan, he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. I hope I'm not interrupting your work. The irony wasn't lost on me. I have a few minutes. How are you, Robert? I'm well. A pause. I saw that article about you today. In the business publication. Yes, they ran a nice piece, I replied neutrally. 8 figures, he said as if testing how the words felt in his mouth. 30 employees. I had no idea your business was so substantial. I remained silent, waiting. I may have misjudged certain aspects of your career. He continued, clearly struggling with each word. Alex tells me you're considering opening an official headquarters in Denver. That's correct. We've outgrown remote-only operations. Another pause. Well, that's very impressive. He cleared his throat. I wonder if perhaps we could talk when you return to Denver. Clear the air, so to speak. It wasn't an apology, not even close. But it was the first time Robert had ever acknowledged my professional accomplishments as legitimate. I think that would be good, I replied carefully. I'll be back next week to look at potential office spaces. We could meet then. Yes, excellent. I'll wait for you to let me know when you're available. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone, processing what had just happened. The man who had called me, unqualified and directionless, was now awkwardly acknowledging my success. Not because he respected me as a person, but because he couldn't argue with the external validation of my accomplishments. It wasn't the relationship breakthrough I might have once hoped for, but it was a start, a crack in the wall of disapproval he'd built around me. For the first time, I faced the possibility of returning to Denver, not as a supplicant seeking approval, but as a woman confident in her own worth. That night, I told Alex I was ready to come home. The Denver airport felt different as I wheeled my suitcase through the terminal. 3 months earlier, I'd fled in emotional turmoil. Now, I returned with a clarity I'd never experienced before. Alex waited beyond security, his face breaking into a massive smile when he spotted me. "Welcome home," he said, enveloping me in a hug that melted away the last of my apprehension. As we drove toward our house, I noticed my shoulders tensing slightly. Alex reached over and squeezed my hand.